Okay, everybody. We're going to be discussing this course, ESS. This is a basic introduction to the course. This is kind of if you really have no idea how the course grades are given out, what the structure of the course is like. This is the beginning. Maybe your teacher is going fast and you kind of don't know where the goal is, right? This is for you. And I think it's important to know how you will be graded because you know what to focus on and you know how to study smartly. So that's what we're going to focus on today. There's going to be other videos in this series where I talk about specific like test hints. In this case, it's just so you can see what kind of test you're going to be taking, so you can see how your grades will be distributed and you can plan your studying based on that. Okay, so this is again just an introduction if this is you're just starting out. Okay, so again, let's go to the structure of the course. Okay, you see here, this is, and again, by the way, this is for primarily for Chinese ESL students who are taking this course. Maybe the English is a little bit difficult for you, so I'm going to try throughout the series to use more basic English, and obviously we see many translations for you. Sometimes that's impossible. We're using scientific words, okay? There's no other way to say abiotic, for example, bioaccumulation. There's no simpler way of saying that. So in some cases we just need to learn the vocabulary, but I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible so that you can understand. Okay, so let's go through your grades for this course. To start out, we see on the left, in the yellow, you have the external assessment. This is a test at the end of DP2, okay, the end of your second year, where you're taking 2 papers, and in total they combine into 75% of your grade, so that's most of your grade. So it's a very stressful 3-hour test. Okay, the first paper is a case study. It takes about an hour. Your second paper will take 2 hours, and it's a mixture of short answer and database questions and also 2 structured essays. Okay, in total, paper 2 is 65 points. Okay, and section A is 25 points, whereas section B is 40 points in total. So if you do the math just in your head, those 2 structured essays are a lot of your grade, right? They are together on their own more than paper 1. Together on their own, they're more than the independent investigation. So that can be a little bit scary because these structured essays require a lot of depth of knowledge. You need to know some subjects very deeply. And with this course, there's so much information that you can know very shallow, in a very shallow way, but there's some topics you need to know very deeply. And to get a good score on those 2 structured essays, you need to know them deeply. So hopefully I can help you in the pursuit of that. But hopefully I'm not scaring you too much, but that's how it is, right? And then we see over here in this greenish color, this green color over here, we have the IA, the internal assessment. This is a independent investigation. It's about 25% of your grade. And this is done by you in your own time, right? You see it's 1,500 to 2,200 words. It's going to be a written report of a research question. Your teacher will probably discuss this in class with you. They are supposed to, at the very least. But if you are a hard-working student and you know the grading system, then hopefully the IA won't be so scary, okay? And hopefully at the end of this series I can kind of give some hints or tips for doing well on the IA so you can understand what to do with it. But hopefully it's not so scary. If you give yourself enough free time, you can do very well on it. But yeah, you see here, that's the majority of your grade, right? I'll show an example of these type of tests in a second, but I just wanted to show the grade breakdown before we do that. So we see here, paper 1, okay, over here in the upper right hand corner is 25% of your grade. Paper 2, the short answer section, is 19.2%. So I broke the paper 2 down into 2 different parts. Okay. The 2 structured essays are 30.8% of your grade. And then the IA is 25% of your grade. So if you just take those 2 structured essays on their own, they are worth more than all the 3 other sections. So IB-ESS maybe has a reputation for needing to know lots of information, but also you need to have a depth of information as well to be able to do well on those essays. And you need to be able to connect the different things you learn in different units to be able to do well on those essays. Okay, so that's one point I want to make here, which is you can't get by just by learning facts. You have to understand different concepts and how they connect together. That will give you a greater depth of knowledge to help you, and that should help you in this course. Okay, and again, this is how the grading system basically works. Paper 1 is out of 35 points. We see here, if you get a 26 through 35, you would get a 7. Okay, whereas paper 2 is a little bit harder. It's out of 65 points, but if you get a 39, you get a 7. And again, that shows the difficulty of paper 2. Paper 2 is a little bit harder to get a very, very high score on, right? So it's not likely you're going to get a 60. There will be some students who get a 30 on paper 1. Very few will get a 60 on paper 2. So again, if you get a 40, I don't want to say just get a 40. If you get a 40 on paper 2, that's the equivalent of a 7. Okay. And then this practical work, this is your IA. These are the grade bands. So that's out of 30 points. And then finally, this is your this is how your grade is calculated. So let's say, for example, you got a 15 out of 35 on paper 1. If you go here, 15 out of 35 is a 3, technically, a high 3. A 32 on paper 2, so 32 would be a 6 in this case, a low 6. And then 18 on the IA, an 18 would be a 5. Okay, if you put these together, okay, and this is kind of a ratio again, paper 1 is 25% of your grade, paper 2 is 50%, paper 3 is 25%. This is what you would end up with. You put those numbers together, you end up with a 51. You take this, you go over to the final scores. 51 is a 5. Okay, so that's how you should be thinking about this, or that's how you should expect to get your grades done in this course. Now, before we go on to the different units in this course, let's look at the papers, this paper 1, paper 2, because they're a little bit unique, they're different. Okay, so let's go here. Nope. All right. So paper 1 is a case study. So the case study So paper 1 is a case study. So a case study is you're looking at a specific environmental region or problem very in depth. Okay, so in this case, this is a resource booklet that I made very quickly. It's not an actual test, but it's very similar to what an actual test would be like. So this is the Jaguar corridor. Okay, this is an area where they're trying to build corridors for jaguars to connect kind of these separate jaguar populations together. Okay, so this whole test might be about the jaguar corridor in this area of the world. Okay, and to do that, they're going to give you many maps, charts, facts, pictures, graphs, all sorts of different things. And it's in two parts. So you'll see this is a resource booklet. This is where you get the maps and charts and facts. And then you'll have a question booklet, okay, where you answer the questions. So they'll give you two parts of the test. So this resource booklet, for example, we see here figure 1A, this is a map. Figure 1B, it's another separate map. Figure 2 is a fact file on the Jaguar corridor. So this is many facts about this area, okay, and what they're doing here. Figure 3A, is population and land information. It's the population of 6 different countries in this area, along with population density, coastline, etc. Figure 3B is these population pyramids. You've never learned about them yet. But when we get to Unit 8, these will be a large part of that unit. And they may ask questions about these graphs and why they're different. Some of the reasons why. Okay. Figure 4A, this is a table about species within the jaguar corridor. So different jaguars, deer, and parrot species. How many live there and how many live on Earth. Figure 4B, this is biodiversity hotspots in this area. Okay, so we see different ones. Okay, and then you might also get something like this, a food web. Okay, so this shows a jaguar food web where jaguars are this keystone species, which means they're at the top of the food web. Okay, and how it's constructed, and they might ask questions about this picture. Okay, so let's look at some of these questions in the question book, how it goes. So for example, you might get a question like question 1, identify the most densely populated country in figure 3A. So we go to figure 3A and we see, oh, it's this table. Okay, so the most densely populated country here. So this question is just, can you read a table? Okay, and we can see here, oh, the most densely populated country is Guatemala. Okay, we go here, we just answer Guatemala. So some of these questions in the case study and the short answer question part of the test in paper 2 aren't so hard, especially these 1-point questions. Okay, they might ask you to do like a very basic math problem based on this table, or they might have you identify something in a chart or in a graph or in a map, and then you just answer it, very short answer, and you get the point. So some of this requires no knowledge beforehand. You could answer this question right now. You've never taken the class before, right? So in some cases, this is why the case study has a higher scoring system. That's why maybe the scores on paper 1 are a little bit higher than on paper 2, where you can't really come into it with no background. You need background knowledge to answer an essay, right? But in this case, you don't. You just look at the table, identify it, and answer. Question 2, with reference to figure 3B, outline 2 reasons for differences between the age gender pyramids for Guatemala and Brazil. Again, we're not really going to go into answering these, but we go to figure 3B, and we're going to give 2 reasons why these are different, which is something you will learn in class. So This requires no background knowledge. This requires some background knowledge from class. Okay. Question 3, with reference to the data in Figure 4a, calculate the world's paired species found in the jaguar corridor. So Figure 4a, we go down here, we see parrot species, 102 in the jaguar corridor, 350 worldwide. We do a simple calculation, we come up with a percentage, and that should be your answer here. Again, a 1-point question, fairly simple. No real background knowledge, you just need to do a simple math problem here. And then 4, with reference to Figure 4c, suggest the impact on the food web if jaguars were to disappear. The 2-point question, it might be a little bit more difficult, but this one's actually pretty simple. Again, a jaguar is a keystone species. It's very important. It's at the top. If the jaguar disappears, this whole food web might disappear. That might be a point that you bring up. Okay, so, but that requires some background knowledge as well. So this is another type of question. So most of these questions require you to look in your resource booklet and answer a question about the figure. So that is important. Now, the other part of it is there are some questions that might be random. They kind of don't refer to a figure. Okay? They might ask, let me just come up with a question off the top of my head. What are the advantages and disadvantages of in situ conservation? Right? You've never heard of that, but it might be important for this type of topic, so they'll ask it, and it might be a larger, so this is 2 points, that might be a 4-point question or a 6-point question, and you need to answer it more in depth. Okay, so they want to see how well you know about conservation of animals. Okay, so that's paper 1. Again, a little bit unique case study situation. Paper 2, let's go to it. Okay, so there are 2 sections for paper 2. Section A is your short answer questions and your data analysis questions. Okay, so often you will see a picture or a map or a graph or figures, whatever, that you use to answer these questions. Okay, and then right after it, you'll see these questions that happen. Okay, so this section, again, it's short answer, it's data analysis. The data analysis might be analyze a table, analyze a graph, something like that. That's 25 points. This is kind of more of a traditional test that you might be familiar with. Okay, and again, section B is 40 points in total. There will be, in total, 4 different options. So imagine, for example, you saw this. Okay, there'd be question 5, question 6, question 7, question 8, right? You have to choose 2 of the 4 to answer. You could choose any of the 2, whatever you know the best, but you have to choose 2 and then write an essay about it. Okay, and then you'll see here it's broken into different point values. So this first part is 4 points, this next part 7 points, this third part 9 points. So this 9-point answer will be a full essay. It will be graded like kind of an essay, right? It has mark bands, things like that. But the other 2 questions are very require some depth as well, right? 7 points, that requires a long answer. 4 points, that requires some knowledge, a good amount of knowledge. Okay, so it's very hard to get the full 20 points here. If you do, kudos, right? That means you worked very hard. But that's what you will be seeing for the essay portion. I just wanted you to get a sense of what this will look like. We will go more into test-taking strategies in a future video. But for now, this is maybe good just to see. Okay. Let's go back to our PowerPoint. Okay. So now let's go into the units of the course. So, oh, I did translate. All right. So the first unit, which is what we will be, which will be the next video, essentially foundations of environmental systems and societies. Then we see ecosystems and ecology, biodiversity and conservation. Okay, so let's actually break down some of these words here. So foundations. Foundations is the basics. The first thing you learn. This will help you understand all the rest of this information. So it can be a little bit confusing at the start without this information, but hopefully by the time you learn the rest, it will make more sense. Ecosystems and ecology. Okay, we're going to be talking about nature, right? Ecology. Eco means like nature or the environment. Ology means the study of. So ecology, we're going to be studying nature, right? Unit 3 is biodiversity and conservation. Biodiversity, bio means life. Okay, diversity means different types of life. Conservation, conserve means to save. So this is about why biodiversity is so important and how we can protect animals and plants and fungi and all the living creatures in an ecosystem. Then Unit 4, water and aquatic food production systems and societies. So this is about water. Okay. Then Unit 5, soil systems and terrestrial food production systems and societies. This is about soil. Okay. Chapter 6, atmospheric systems and society. This is about the atmosphere, the sky. Unit 7, climate change and energy production. This is about climate change and, energy production, how we get energy in society, for example. And then finally, human systems and resource use. So this is how humans play a part in this, and it goes into sustainability, how we waste, how we use resources or misuse resources, things like that. Okay, so just so you get an understanding, in the big picture, this is many different sciences together. Okay, there's a little bit of physics, basic physics, but there's a little bit of it in it. Ecology, obviously. There is biology, a little bit of that. There's a little bit of chemistry. So in many ways, it's combining all of this together, but it shouldn't be too deep. You're not going to be learning lots of chemistry if you struggle with that, so it shouldn't be too scary. Now, let's finish this video off by talking about this question. Is ESS easy or hard? Okay, you might be scared of this course, or you might have heard some different things about this course. And I would say one thing, if you are interested in the environment, then it's very likely you will understand this material very easily. Okay, some people are very interested in this topic, so that's one thing to consider. Another is the depth of material. So all these different systems connect. Atmospheric systems, soil systems, water, biodiversity. These are all connected together. And a big part of this course is talking about the different connections. So you need to have a very deep understanding of the material to see the connections and to explain the connections. How do these atmospheric systems impact things like biodiversity, like these water and aquatic food production systems? It might not be obvious now, but hopefully it will be. So the depth is very hard for some students. So that is challenging. The concepts, in my opinion, and in the opinion of maybe many students, not too difficult to understand, right? It's kind of surface level. It's not like if you take chemistry, right? You might be digging real deep into chemistry. The chemistry we learn is very shallow, okay? It's very simple to understand. If we're learning about biology, we're just learning the basics of biology, right? But how they connect to each other is very difficult. Again, it's the depth and the connections that make it very hard for some people. Now, this is maybe the bigger point for you ESL students, you in China, or you in America who are Chinese ESL students. There's a lot of specialized vocabulary, and this is one of the big issues for my students in the past. Is it's hard to remember all these new vocabulary terms, right? I've said a few. In situ conservation, what is that? What is bioaccumulation, right? These words can be very intimidating, but that is hopefully where I can help a little bit. That's where these materials with translations hopefully can help a little bit. But some of it is just, you have to memorize it. There's no trick to it. Sometimes with vocabulary, you just have to learn it. My experience teaching IB/ESS, if you want a 7, there are 2 levels of understanding. And again, this is very specific to Chinese ESL students, or just students who understand Chinese, right? If you are maybe better at Chinese than you are at English, or any ESL student really. There's 2 levels of understanding. First, stability to understand concepts. And then second is the ability to explain concepts. And they are different. So often, my students can understand the concepts in their head. But when they try to explain it, it's very simple English and maybe very, it doesn't come out right. And it's not very in-depth. And that's an issue, okay? So being able to understand it to the ability where you can explain it and write it down is very important to get good scores on tests, right? So, and that goes to learning these vocabulary words. Learning vocabulary is hard, but it needs to be done, right? And maybe also maybe learning how to write the type of with the type of grammar that you might see on a test, right? To be able to write basic sentences to explain yourself, very important, okay? So that's important. So over the course of the series, we'll be doing 2 things, and I'll end it here. We're going to be reviewing content and concepts from the class, and then going over test-taking strategies, sample test questions, and sample case studies, because I think this is very important as well. Okay? So, thank you for listening. We're going to go into Unit 1 right after this. So, have a good day.